Hey guys, welcome back. Hey guys, welcome back, my fellow adventurers. I'd like to talk to you today about a really famous and interesting character who has inspired a lot of my ideas around building product right now. And hopefully this is something that you can learn from and maybe adopt if you think that there's any value. I'm going to talk about Abraham Maslow. So he's a famous American psychologist that wrote a paper back in 1943 called The Theory of Human Motivation. It was very widely received and endorsed, and it ended up becoming what's now called the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, a very sort of famous structure. It's like a pyramid, and there's 5 different levels to that pyramid, and it really sort of basically takes you through 5 levels of human motivation, essentially. And I actually believe a lot that that is, it's very accurate and is the case. So I'm going to walk you through it very, very briefly here so that you can sort of know what those 5 levels are if you haven't are not as familiar with this work. And I'm going to show you how you could actually use this in your own products or services. So, or at least how I am as an experiment, and my whole goal here by sharing this is that hopefully somebody else finds some value here and they can run the same experiment. I haven't really seen folks really tie these 2 things together very often, or if at all. So hopefully this gives you a bit of an advantage as well. And that's also always my goal here, is to give you some advantages when you're creating. So physiological needs, I should say, is at the bottom level. So that's the foundation. We share that with all other mammals and other animals too. Basically, it's things like breathing, it's like food, it's like water, depending on how hostile the environment is that you live in. Maybe it's shelter as well, getting away from the, crazy cold or crazy heat. So that is the foundational level. If you don't have that, of course, the other stuff doesn't really matter, right? Because if you don't have you don't have air, then forget about worrying about the next parts on the pyramid. The next one up is safety and security. So this is basically for us humans, it would be things like having a job. It would be having resources, money in the bank to pay for things like food and stuff, trade and barter with your neighbors. It'd be like things like property. Could also be considered things like having a big family, so that you have people, if the world ends up getting zombie apocalypse, you've got more people to fight them off, right, alongside you. Next one up is love and belonging. So on that level, it's much more around the intimate connections that you have with family members, with loved ones, your relationship with your siblings, your relationship with your parents, with your kids, all of that kind of fun stuff, right? Your dearest friends. Next one up from there is self-esteem. So this is things like status, it's accomplishment, it's your reputation, at work or at play, wherever we're talking about. It's basically how you kind of, show up in the world with your title and with your, sort of your accomplishments behind you. And then the last one, which is the one that I think is quite interesting to me, they're all interesting, but this is the one that I think is pretty profound, is this idea of self-actualization. And this is one that I think a lot of folks don't think a lot about until you do, and then you're like, whoa, like it kind of blows you away. And this is like, it starts to border on things like spiritualism. It's like the meaning of life. What's my purpose here on the planet? Peak experiences. So things that you do that are unforgettable, these experiences that are unforgettable that, on your last day, when you're thinking of all the things you've accomplished, this is like what comes to your mind, like this sort of these blissful experiences that you've had in life, they come only every so often, and they're unforgettable. So again, these are all the different motivations. So sort of chasing these different things, having, a sense of purpose and meaning, all the way back down to, again, having basically food and water and air. That's basically the hierarchy. Great theory. It makes a ton of sense. It's very clear that we are motivated by all these things. So now that you understand that there is this sort of pyramid and there's kind of like a hierarchy here, let's think about a product or service that we're building and how you can leverage that to really go very, very deep in connecting with your customer. We talk a lot about the customer journey, and we don't really talk about like the psychological side of the customer journey. We're more obviously talking about like more about like a actual linear sort of event where, you know, somebody's going from point A to point B to point C. It's sort of like you feel like you're thinking of somebody sort of walking through their life and going through a number of different events that day, and then your product is sort of meeting them at these different events. That's how a lot of times I think the customer journey is described. Well, I'm actually thinking of it differently now, and it's really about what are the different ways that I think about this gadget, this product or service that actually fulfills me in this deeper, emotionally driven, psychological way, right? So it starts with this physiological, so you don't move away from that. That's sort of still going to be a foundation with the products and services we build. But then it goes into these deeper, higher levels. And you can do this with one product. It might be a challenge depending on what you're working on, or one service. But you can also do this with your brand and introduce multiple products that basically together create that full stack, that full pyramid of experience. And that's what I'm really attempting, and that's the experiment I'm running. So I have one sort of avatar or one persona, one type of customer that I'm targeting. That one customer basically is going to be introduced to multiple products and potentially services that actually take them on the customer journey through this psychological adventure with me. I'll give you a really basic example here, and then in the future I'm actually going to break down some of my actual brands that I'm working on, or products I'm working on that are sort of forming a brand, sort of how I'm actually doing this specifically. But today I want to sort of keep this really high level for you to kind of give you just like the basics so that you could actually go out and maybe start to experiment with your own products and services and sort of reanalyze them from this perspective. Let's take a beverage. We have this vitamin water beverage that we've built as a sort of the foundation of our new brand. So we've got this new brand, and we are thinking about starting with physiological foundation. We're going to start there. So water's perfect, right? Because you need water to survive, right? So we have this like great vitamin water, so it's going to give us our electrolytes, it's going to give us vitamins and minerals, and then it's going to also give us the foundation, the H2O, the water itself, that's going to keep us alive. So that's already conquered. Very simple. We could stop there, right? We've sort of done our foundational job with our product. If the person's in the desert and they're just, they're dying of thirst, you don't need to go any higher on the hierarchy for that product to knock it out of the park. But let's be honest, most of us are not in the desert dying of thirst right now, right? We live in relative abundance, especially in many parts of the world, and we're definitely much more locked into some of these higher areas of the hierarchy. So I'm going to take that water now, I'm going to start to move it up the ladder, right? I'm going to move it up the pyramid. So now I'm going to get into like a sense of belonging, security. On that second level up, I'm going to get into security. So let's start there. So we get into security, and on the security level, and when I have a bottle of water in an amazing sort of like container that's going to protect it from basically pouring out or getting contaminated or evaporating, then I can take that on a long hike with me, or I can take that throughout my entire day, and I always have water whenever I need it. So psychologically, I'm now meeting that need. So depending on how I package it, what kind of container I put it in, or what kind of container maybe I sell with my brand for my water, all of a sudden now I've met the second level of the pyramid, right? So now I've met another need for my customer. And now we go back again, we go up to a higher level with a sense of belonging, and now we can look at it and say, well, what if I actually marketed the product as a product for not an individual, but for a team, or for high performing individuals that work in partnership with their team members, or with like other family members maybe, and now I can start to market it as like a package where I can put together for somebody who wants to connect with other people. Another way I could approach that is I could say, hey, you know what, this product basically, every time I buy this product, somebody around the world who's in need is going to also get access to this water. There's like lots of famous products that do that now. It's like, buy one for me and one is donated to somebody in need, right? So, and believe it or not, as we know, actually, most of us that in the world today, there's still unbelievably people that actually are have a lack of access to fresh, clean drinking water. So that could be like a really amazing way for your brand to start to connect with, deeply with other people, have that sort of sense of connection and belonging. And then I'm going even further up on the hierarchy, and now we start to get into basically self-identity. We start to get into status, right? So maybe I create my brand so that basically connects to somebody similar to what Nike did, where it's for high-performing individuals. So because it's for high-performing individuals, I self-identify as somebody who wants to feel like a high-performing athlete or high-performing performer. I want to feel like somebody who's actually like elite at what I do, even if it's in my regular day-to-day. So now I'm actually branding this and communicating this in such a way that it now starts to feel like anybody who has this water has like a leg up on their competition. Anybody who has this water is going to be identified by people around them as somebody who's like an actual athlete, is a high-performing individual, which is extremely compelling. So I've gone through the entire hierarchy with this one brand, this one product, by just sort of marketing and communicating in different ways, right? And then you can get to the very highest one. Maybe I've got an idea around actually a beverage company I'll introduce in an upcoming video that actually taps into that self-actualization one really well. And I'm going to save that as a surprise so that you actually watch the next video on this topic. I'll link to it in days to come, or when you're seeing this video, you'll actually see the link probably. So anyway, that's the video. Hopefully you can run this experiment yourself. I challenge you to try this yourself in looking at your product from this customer journey in a very psychological, unique way versus the sort of typical way that we think of it as, these sort of physical events that your customer's going on. It's now more of an emotional journey. It's more of a psychological journey, and it's tapping into all their desires and motivations and drivers with that one brand. And once you can do that, my only guess would be that the lock-in would be incredible, because so few brands do that, right? So few brands are really conscious about thinking about that. So good luck, and we'll see you on the other side.